I am so excited to share with you part three of the three-part series I've been doing all this week on how to raise emotionally healthy children. And today I'm going to talk about how to be a good judge. On day one, I went through first how to start young, how we use language, how I use some calm down strategies with my kids to just lay a really good foundation for emotionally healthy children. If you didn't check that out, saved in the group. And then on day two, which would have been Wednesday of this week, then we went into a strategy so the kids don't get kind of, when they do start to have head-to-heads, they're going to have conflicts, so they don't end up getting bitter and getting revenge. So I do have strategies for that I shared on day two. But today, once we've rolled out the strategy I talked about the other day, then it comes time for me to be the judge. And when I have to play judge in the context of my own home, it can be challenging at times. So I'm going to share that with you today. But before I get into it, hello, in case we haven't met yet. My name is Tara. I'm a Christian wife, homeschool mom of 10, actually almost 11 children in 5 weeks as of this video. And I have a heart to help big family moms overcome struggles and grow in grace, because God knows I was not really prepared for motherhood. I was prepared for the workforce. So all of a sudden, when I found myself with 4 under 4, 606, 707 and on, it's a really steep learning curve, especially because I was a relatively new Christian at the time. So that's me. Welcome to today's live. Let's get into it. So you might be able to relate to this scene. It happens to me pretty frequently. I'll be sitting down to finally have a hot cup that I've been trying to have for the last 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, just about to hold up my coffee to my mouth, and it's like thunder, lightning, crash, boom, right? There's this total eruption that happens in the other room, or even like somewhere close to me. Kids are yelling, and it's like a total cloud burst. You're just like, oh my gosh, right? Like the Grinch, the noise, and the kids just go bananas because they're human. I homeschool, but it doesn't make kids any less human, right? Just means we're home doing our education at home. We spend a lot more time together. Listen, as the kids get bigger, those conflicts they just get bigger. They get louder. Their bodies get bigger. It can get violent. Well, even a 3-year-old can hit a 2-year-old, right? And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm not having my coffee apparently, because if I ignore this or just say, oh, just give it to your brother, there's going to be not only short-term but long-term problems, not really preparing them well for life. And there's all kinds of stuff going on there, and it's not going to go away. It's a Band-Aid where you need, really serious attention. So I'm going to talk to you today about how I step in at that point when the conflict has now erupted and mom needs to step in as a judge. So the first thing that has really helped me just be more calm and more confident when, this whole eruption happens and I'm not having my hot coffee is, obviously calm myself down first, right? Take a deep breath, be a grown-up about it, deal with your stuff. If you've got stuff and you're like, I'm not being calm about it, that's another talk for another day. So I've already dealt with some of that stuff, so I am able to just roll into it, but it helps because I know I have a strategy. I'll share it with you now. So I pull the parties aside. Okay, come on over here. Now, if they're all enraged, there's no way we're going to have any kind of rational discussion because people are crying, yelling. Then we need to calm everybody down first. And I talked about that earlier in the week. So once everyone's reasonably calm, and sometimes it's just, hey, you go sit over there, you go sit over there. We will talk in 5 minutes. Everyone just take a cool down. Maybe I can finish my coffee too. And then when we talk, this is how I do it. I know that I am appointed by God to be one of the 2 rulers in this family, like a king and a queen in a kingdom. This is our jurisdiction. This is our family entrusted to us by God. So I know I have biblical authority. I have God-given authority to rule in matters where justice is called for. So I call the kids in when we're calm and I say, all right, here's how we're going to do it. And they actually already know the ground rules, so I don't usually have to tell them the whole play-by-play, but I'll share it with you in detail because this might be new to you, and it's been so helpful for me. So then I say, okay, I'm going to hear the matter out. You're going to go first. You're going to go next. We won't interrupt each other. I will ask questions to help clarify because, I just heard the final eruption and I need to get the whole story. Like a good investigator, kind of like a courtroom, right? I am playing judge. I am the jury and I will administer justice as I see fit. But step 1 is get the facts. And my kids appreciate that so much because when you just kind of make a quick judgment, which I've been prone to do, I've done it when I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this. Just give it back. But when it's a little more complex, kids are a little bit older, and we can have this level of interaction, they appreciate so much that they will be heard that they will have a chance to, defend what went on. And also the guilty parties, and it usually takes two to tango. They know they're not, the other person's not just going to get away with it. That can set up some really unhealthy dynamics in the home, sibling real tensions. I mean, it'd be sad to see them go on into their life if I didn't address these things in the earlier years as they grew up, and they just grew up with this sense of there's no fairness in the world. Nobody's going to listen to me. I just have to take everything on myself. That's not emotionally healthy. They're not going to show empathy and trust with other people if they feel like they have to be guarded and protecting themselves all the time, right? Nobody cares. Nobody's listening. So there's a lot going on when I do this simple strategy. In the short term, yeah, I'm dealing with a conflict, but I'm also helping them become emotionally healthy adults, able to resolve conflict, because this is life. We're here on earth. There will be conflict in every relationship you have. So I would calm down and I hear people out without interruption. And then we go back and forth. I ask questions, and usually you can see people kind of start to squirm when they recognize that they're not going to get away with their part of it. Like I said, it almost always takes two to tango, right? And I don't necessarily say, okay, well, you are more responsible so the other person gets off scot-free. No, my philosophy is you're 100% responsible for your part. And that applies to me too. When I'm in the wrong with my own conflicts with people, taking full responsibility is part of growing into a more emotionally healthy adult. That's life preparation that I certainly didn't receive. And you and I both know we're living in a society right now where taking responsibility for your actions, expressing your emotions in a healthy, constructive way, and good conflict resolution are seriously lacking. So this is really important stuff. This is civilization changing kind of stuff. And it begins, in my opinion, in the smallest unit and the most powerful unit of society, the family. So I hear people out, ask my questions, and then I just simplify it by going to my next step, which is, okay, I think we're dealing with two issues here. Issue number one, issue number two, and here's how we're going to proceed. And every family has their own way of proceeding. Maybe you don't, and that's okay. I'm not giving you harsh judgment with consequences. What is going to be the outcome of typical scenarios? You stole something, you hit somebody, whatever the scenario is. If you don't have that structure, we'll talk a little bit about it later. But in our family, they already kind of know, generally speaking, what's going to happen, age appropriate kind of what I call outcomes, consequences, discipline, whatever you want to call it. It's the cause and effect of okay. And I'll say, okay, sibling A, I think you were in the wrong when you did this. Would you agree? And they're like, yes. Okay, right? Because I've got a pretty good picture of what's going on here. And then sibling number two, I'm like, however, you were also wrong when you, retaliated or whatever, or took your revenge, hit them back. Would you agree? And then when they both agreed, I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And maybe it's just as simple as, would you please just apologize and give back the thing you took? There you go. And then person B, there you go. Done, right? This whole thing can take 5 to 10 minutes or less, especially if I don't make it a big lecture. I just kind of admit it, I hear it out and give them some outcomes, and then we move on. If it's a little more complicated or I'm really provoked, then I might need to step back and say, this is actually a little more complicated, guys, because in the process of talking, we may uncover backstory where it's like, Mom, this isn't the first time this has happened. He keeps doing this. And I'm like, whoa, I had no idea this dynamic was happening between the two of you. Because maybe it was happening, kind of out of sight. And the other person was just trying to handle it. It's all been piling up. And now the explosion came. Because some people deal with stress and conflict that way. They just kind of, take it until they blow. Right? And that's kind of more of an introverted way of dealing with stress and conflict. I get it, being more introverted myself. So sometimes it's more complicated, or we end up uncovering a whole other sub issue that connects to the smaller thing that happened today. It might help explain why somebody blew off the total lid for a very small infraction, proportionately. If it's more complicated, then I may do a little time buying and just say, this is a little more complicated, guys. It depends, it's time to get on with our day. We're gonna come back. So I just put a sticky note on the microwave and I said, maybe I want to also consult with Dad because some things might be a little more complicated and I don't want to make a quick ruling, a quick judgment, or maybe we need to have more of a talk later when the little kids are in bed and we can really unpack some of the more emotional stuff that's been going on between two siblings or maybe one sibling in particular. It's happened. So that's how I buy time. I don't necessarily have to do it all right now, but I do aim to do it within 24 hours, right? Because our memories fade and, and I get busy, almost 11 kids. So That's how I deal with it, broadly speaking, as a judge. I stay calm. I listen. I don't let them interrupt. Make sure fair is fair, that I've heard everybody out, and I make my ruling. If it's complicated, we reschedule. If there's more to it, okay, I get it. That happens. And that's really healthy, because now it's what I talked about on day one. I'm walking alongside them, supporting them, because eventually, as we all know, childhood leads to adulthood. That's where this is all going. And the way I see it is, raising emotionally healthy adults is going to be a guided process of eventually releasing them, right? You release them into more financial responsibility, more physical responsibility over care for their own body, choosing their own clothes, how they decorate themselves, their companions. I give guidance, but eventually it's time to let go. And that's a transition, kind of like the teeter totter, where like I had 100% control in the beginning, like even bladder control, but and now they're releasing, right? They're now taking care of everything for themselves. And it comes quickly. When in the early years, when they were just like little babies and it was 4 to 4, it looked like there was no end in sight. My life was just going to be dishes and diapers forever. But now I've got an almost 17-year-old with her driver's license, and 14-year-old twins who are almost as tall as me. It felt like the days were so long in the early years, but it speeds up. So the work you do in the early years, laying good foundations, giving them the step one, step two strategy, if that works for you, that I shared on part 2, or today, just being a good judge. It all pays off. This is part of my key strategies that I've learned by God's grace over the years to help my children grow from emotionally healthy children to more emotionally healthy adults, which, like I said, is civilization changing, right? That's going to change generations, because God willing, they'll carry it on into their own lives should they marry and raise families. And, with almost 11 kids, somebody's probably going to get married. I think there's grandchildren in my future. But for now, I'm still in the thick of it as a big family stay-at-home mom. If you're appreciating the content I've been sharing, especially, raising emotionally healthy kids, but you're struggling, you're like, Tara, this is good, but I need some more. I got to go deeper. There's more to it. Listen, I've only shared some of the golden pieces, and I have a heart to give you all that I have to give to help shave the learning curve, because man, mine was steep and fast and kind of hard. I've put together a mini course called Boundaries and Communications for a Big Family, where I share everything that I've got to give. I got worksheets. I really walk through it in a mini course, because we're all busy. So you can just watch it in little chunks and then apply what would really help you in your life. Because if you find you're yelling at your kids, you're crying in the bathroom, as I have done for yelling at my kids too hard, and you just don't know how to do this with good boundaries, good communication, staying calm as a mom, making consequences that work and feel good in your family, and actually, help your kids. I get it. I've walked the road, and I've put together a resource for you, linking it in today's video. So if you want to check it out, feel free. Oh, like I said, days are short, or the days are long, but those years are short. I went to school all day when I was a kid. I was totally not prepared for this. My parents, they did their best, right? I don't want to rip on them, but the truth is, my mom was pretty emotionally distant, and my dad worked 7 days a week. So yeah, by the time I hit parenthood, I was like, what are you supposed to do? How do you talk to your kids? I figured out the diaper stuff, but the scheduling, the communication, the running the big family home, yeah, it got real really fast. And I love that I get to help other moms from this place now. So if you're struggling, girl, you got all kinds of grace in the world coming from me, because I know how it feels to be so ill-equipped. And now you're in the fire with 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids, and the stress levels are going through the roof, and you feel bad because you're like, what? Like, not only is every day a struggle, but you're like, how am I going to prepare them? This is just going to carry on into the next generation. I get it. And I also know God's grace is there. You can learn. Why? Because I did. And if I can do it, you can do it. So feel free to check out the course. Go ahead and comment today's video. I love interacting with you in the group and being a resource to you to help you overcome struggles and grow in God's grace. So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to chatting with you like